this is a bit weird, but Zapper is a game from my childhood, even though I never owned it. At least not the PlayStation 2 version. I did own the GBA title for a little while. The reason for this is quite simple. Back in elementary, there was an after-school program in the gym. Here they had a few PlayStation 2s to play, and I only remember 2 of the games on them. One was Kingdom Hearts, a video for another time, and the other was Zapper. That right there was my experience with this game. Sometimes after school, I would go play it for a bit, or maybe watch someone else play the game. Of course, that brings up the question, what exactly is Zapper? The setup here is super simple. Zapper the cricket is watching TV with this grub, who it turns out is his brother. Something you would only know if you read the instruction manual. As they're fighting over what to watch, the TV starts to lose signal. So, Zapper grabs his brother and uses him as an antenna. This works, and on the television we see that an evil bird has escaped jail and just so happens to be going around stealing things. One of the things it ends up stealing is Zapper's brother, so this sets him out on a journey to go save the grub. There you go! That's all there is to it, and things never really get more interesting or developed from there. Really, the story is just an excuse for gameplay, and it's alright. Some people might not like how Zapper is still a jerk at the end of the game as he is at the beginning. Though for me, due to how short the whole experience is, I wasn't bothered one bit. Honestly, the only thing I can say about the story is that it's there and has so little impact for me. So, Zapper is a platformer, or I think that's how you would categorize it? Let me explain. The game's levels have a very grid-like setup in how they are traversed. Zapper will move one space at a time when using the D-pad. He can turn around while remaining stationary on a square, and the jump is used to clear gaps, or to land on higher sections you couldn't otherwise just simply move Zapper onto. I guess the closest thing I could compare it to is that Zapper feels a lot like controlling Frogger in the original Frogger, which is why I'm a little hesitant to call it a platformer, as you're mostly navigating your way through grid-like level while dodging some typical platformer obstacles like falling platforms, timed spikes, and enemies. For combat, Zapper can shock enemies, and it's useful though there is quite a few who resist his attack. Here is where we should talk about the power orbs. These are blue orbs scattered throughout the levels, and act mostly as a collectible, though they can also serve as a useful power-up. In certain areas of a level, you will see a blue number. These numbers will indicate how many power orbs you will need to collect to be given the Super Zap, which is good for killing tougher enemies and breaking metal boxes. It's an interesting mechanic, but isn't really ever needed for progression. It's kinda there for a little extra challenge for completionists, as sometimes orbs are put in some tricky areas. On top of that, there are special yellow orbs that will unlock panels to secret spots. The trick here is you have to collect the yellow orbs in a certain order, or else you won't get the key. Thankfully, everything you collect is saved even if you die, which might happen a lot since Zapper dies in one hit, and a few of the areas in some of the levels can be a bit challenging, like the sinking stones and falling stones in the lava. You're given plenty of lives though every time you game over, 20 to be exact. So simply getting to the end of the level really shouldn't be that much of a problem. It also helps that the game is super short and linear. You go from one level to the next, and there are about 12 levels total. The way you finish a level is a bit interesting. Instead of simply reaching the end, you have to collect 6 eggs that will also double as checkpoints in every level. These eggs will often be just lying around in an area, or on a few occasions will be found in simple boxes. So finding all 6 eggs isn't that difficult, and nor do you have to go out of your way to do it, which is nice as it helps keep the levels from feeling too tedious or annoying. Later into the game, they will spice things up a bit by making eggs hatch and move around, so now you first have to shock the egg before grabbing it, or chick in certain cases. And that's really about it. There's only one boss fight in the whole game, and one other time that I can think of the gameplay being changed in a level, which was all about dodging things in a pipe. But I still have some fun with these levels, as some of the obstacles and moments are entertaining, like destroying the teeth in the skull, jumping on these sinking carrots, and trying not to get killed by blow darts. When it comes to the environments and levels, I would say the game looks pretty alright. Some areas are rather colorful and not awful to look at, plus there is a somewhat cartoon-like direction with the art style that, to me, works well enough. I think what helps is that a few of the levels really stand out in my mind in terms of their theme. Like, we have a sawmill, this cool tomb-like cave area, a forest, and a spooky train. On the other hand, I found the factory lab levels towards the end to be a bit dull. Zapper himself has a nice enough design and character model, though there are a few things that kinda clash, like how slugs will turn into skeletons and blood when dying. At first it's kind of funny, but also just a little off and weird. The music is pretty alright, there are some neat upbeat tunes, but nothing all that memorable for myself. So yeah, that's Zapper. And I can completely see why this game got such average reviews when it came out. The gameplay is super simple, doesn't have an amazing or unique art style, and it's super short, which is kinda nice for those who want to fully complete it with its somewhat collectathon aspects. I too would have to say that I find Zapper to be fairly average. The reason why it stands out so much for me is because there aren't very many platformers like it for the system. Like, I think there is a Frogger game similar to this, but I haven't yet played it. The only PlayStation 2 Frogger game I played was awful, and nightmare fuel. But I think Zapper does enough interesting things with its gameplay to make it a decent experience. To be fair, the GBA version could be better, I just haven't played it in so long that I couldn't say. Zapper is, at the very least, worth 2 or 3 hours to play if you find this style of platformer interesting, and can find the game for super cheap, which usually is pretty easy. Well, next time, I'll be starting up another short marathon here, starting with a title that's a bit out of place compared to the rest of the games within its series, and might seem a bit odd to start off with, but I'll explain myself once we get to that video.